Okay, people. So, The Hive. This is the feature directorial debut from Jared Allmond, who also wrote the joint, right? It is it's executive produced by Luke Taylor, Matthew Helderman, Timothy Haig, and Jared Allman himself. Jonathan B. Nah handles the cinematography. Rachel Almond is on production design. Brittany Moody, um, Madeline Neves, and Eula Tun handle special effects, makeup, and hair. Art department is Dorothy Zhu. Sound department is Alejandra Alvarez. Now, our cast. Albie is played by Timothy Haig. His wife, Penny, is played by Christie Griffin. They've got a son and daughter. Son is played by Blake Ellie, and their daughter is played by Annabelle Crivelli. Their grandmother is played by Elizabeth Shembry. So we have got Penny's sister, Kimmy, played by Whitney Reed. Mark, their neighbor, is played by Mark Norwood. And then we have two strangers. The man is played by Miles Taber, and the woman is played by Julianne Ruck. So, the gist of the story is this: Albie and Penny Jones, a young married couple with a failing relationship and two children, try to rekindle the fire by having a night out by themselves. Unfortunately, they can't catch a break as they arrive back home to two strangers who are armed inside their house. Albie and Penny reach out to their neighbor Mark, who is no help. Albie calls 911, but it seems as if law enforcement has been compromised. So Albie and Penny decide to go to Penny's sister's house for help. Kimmy advises them to go back home and capture evidence of the intruders in action. Penny is hesitant, but Albie talks her into going through it with her. I mean, I have to say, I can't do any more of this synopsis because it's basically giving the whole story away. Basically, two strangers are in a couple's house and all craziness ensues from there. Now, Jared has a director's statement. This is what that says. We all have interpersonal conflicts in our relationships, especially when it comes to our significant others. No matter how much we attempt to step around it or stave it off, we find that this is just an integral part of life. Like death or taxes, it doesn't have to be the end of the world, though. The key is building a strong foundation in our relationships so that we can work through whatever issues come our way. What happens when we do just that? What happens when we learn to get over our differences and come together as loved ones? Well, by and large, there's growth emotionally and even spiritually for that matter. These are two ingredients that help us reach towards our ultimate goal, becoming our best selves. On the other hand, what happens when we don't learn to set aside our differences and come together as people? We diminish those ingredients within us that help us become our best selves, and we stunt our growth as human beings. The thought of simply never learning to work together as partners in a relationship intrigues me, though. It's only a matter of time before another external circumstance comes barreling down, disrupting your relationship's internal stability, even more than it already is. Not having the tools to work past this sort of disruption would be disheartening to say the least. How terrible it must be to have those bumps in the road be never ending and never resolved, crashing down like waves on our relationship over and over again, knocking you down, never allowing you to fully stand. The intrigue of this notion brought me to the Hive. What better way to examine this sort of tragedy than with a story rooted in a thriller horror backdrop? After all, there aren't many more horrific thoughts than putting your whole heart and soul into something like a marriage and then finding that the foundation of that marriage is weak. Ultimately, you'd watch the walls come crashing down on everything, taking your heart and soul down with it. At its core, The Hive is a tale about Albie and Penny, a couple with typical internal turmoil in their relationship. This couple has long let go of the tools needed to overcome that typical relationship turmoil. So, this strenuous outside circumstances that come along tear down the integrity of the couple's relationship even more so until there's nothing left. This story is a fairy tale of sorts. There, those outside circumstances take the form of creatures and situations rooted in make believe. In this fairy tale, the fissures of life widen and descend deeper into darker places. My hope is for the viewer to observe the dark places Albie and Penny trudge through, and in an ideal world, be able to say, well, my relationship doesn't seem so bad. But perhaps the viewer isn't far from the situation Albie and Penny find themselves to be in. Whatever the case, the story resides within a thrilling landscape that will stick with the viewer, serving as an admonishing tale, resonating with them for years to come. My hope is for the viewer to observe the dark places Albie and Penny trudge through, and in an ideal world, be able to say, well, my relationship doesn't seem okay. I mean, that kind of repeats itself. Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of weird. But yes, so that's The Hive. And look, watching this film, you can definitely see that this couple is not in the best of places, right? They, I mean, it all seems to come from work, right? And I think supporting each other. Well, when I say supporting each other, it really does seem Albie is the problem here, right? Penny is an actress, but since having kids, it looks like she's not been able to, you know, work, right? And you wonder, so how isn't she not getting help to be able to do that? Or has there been a plan put in place, a timeline? You know, something. It's not clear. But it seems Albie is just more focused on what he's doing, you know? So we do get that, right? We know that going to the opera is meant to be something to help, right? To get them back on track. But you kind of feel, how is going to the opera going to help, right? Like what they need is an actual conversation, you know, something where they can talk and work out how do we move forward. Because, yeah, it definitely wasn't the opera, right? That doesn't seem to have helped anything. So when they get home and there's people in the house, huh? What? Now, there are kind of these issues with the story for me, right? Because you think, okay, because as I said in the synopsis, they call the police, right? But the police do seem to be compromised, which then means it kind of negates everything else, right? Because there's a question that is asked in this film, right? Something that these strangers are after, which you then kind of assume if they have the police in pocket, they should be able to get their answer there. You know what I mean? That's the, I think that's the big issue here. That part of the story circumvents everything else. It makes everything else irrelevant, you know? So it is a little bit baffling that we get all the other things, you know, because it's just not very clear. And then I think you should be able to tell the irrational behavior from some of the other people they meet, but they don't really pick up on any of it, which is kind of, again, a little bit peculiar here. Now, you know, being Jared's first film, right? He's done a few short films. So, like, it does feel a little rough. It does feel a little uneven, but they're things you can grow from. You know what I mean? Like being able to get your first feature out, right? That's a huge thing, right? So this is a foundation. I did think there was a probe kind of element here, and that I thought that came across really well. You know what I mean? I thought that was great. That part of the story works very well. It's just some of the other components don't fully come together. Like I don't buy the relationship. You know, even being a fractured relationship, it still doesn't necessarily work. Right. And you do have like certain situations where it's just like, okay, yeah, granted, but why would you then go and do that? Right? There's an opportunity to leave the house. Don't leave the house. Go into a room. You just, I don't get that. Right? Rope. In this film, rope does not do its function. Rope does not do its function. You know what I mean? It's just like, yo, you know, and then don't like, if glass isn't sharp, it's not going to cut rope. But if you're trying to cut rope, then the rope has to cut. It doesn't just fall off. You know, so there are these weird, these weird things going on. But listen, if you like, you know, what I mean, kind of B movies, if you like the kind of movies that you find on the Sci-Fi Channel, you know what I mean, right? This is probably gonna be your thing, right? It's like a home invasion, alien invasion type of fare. It's 85 minutes, 88 minutes, round about that. So it's not crazy long or anything like that. But yeah, if you do enjoy, you know, those sort of B movies, you know, then the Hive could work for you. It is out on, you know, all your favorite VODs this Friday, the 27th of, wait, is Friday the 27th? I feel Friday is the 27th. So it's out then. Yeah, Friday is. Friday's the 27th, people. That's when this drops. So yeah, if it feels like, you know, this could be for you, then go take a look at the Hive.